13 teams and 10 individuals, or 14 teams and 5 individuals will be at each of the 6 sites. 30 automatic bids through their conference championships, as well as 51 at-large teams moving on. The one critical number that you want to remember, the top 5 from each regional team-wise move to Greyhawk, and then the top individual from a non-advancing team at each regional will also move on to Arizona. Let's take a look at the number 1 seeds all across the country. The Oklahoma Sooners, the Cowboys from Oklahoma State, Vanderbilt, Arizona State, North Carolina, and Pepperdine. We will go to Norman, Oklahoma, in the regional hosted by the Sooners. And again, hats off to the Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club, all the folks, head coach Ryan Hibble for being able to turn things around and pivot so quickly to get this regional on site for 2022. We know the Sooners are at home. We know they are the number 1 seed. The question is, what other teams are going to make the trip to Norman, Oklahoma to hopefully extend their season? As we take a look at the team profile of Oklahoma, they just won the Big 12 championship. Golf stat ranking of number 1, 16 victories throughout the course of the season, led by Chris Gotterup, to transfer from Rutgers and a runner-up at the national championships a year ago, falling to Pepperdine, joining the Oklahoma Sooners. Surprise, surprise, the Texas Longhorns, the 2 seed in Norman. Then some SEC flavor with Auburn, South Carolina, Ole Miss, 3, 4, and 5. And keep an eye on San Diego State. I know we're going to talk about those Aztecs a little bit later as we focus on the southeast part of the country. Honda Classic kicking off that Florida swing each and every year, so we'll see how it plays in May. Perhaps a little different. We already know Vanderbilt was going the number 1 seed. Here are the rest of the schools making their way to South Florida. The Gators, a couple-hour drive in a van. Notre Dame, a really good 3 seed. They're going to head south. The Seminoles also staying in state. Purdue, New Mexico, and South Florida, rounding out the top 7 for the Palm Beach Gardens regional site. Good reason why Vanderbilt is the number 1 seed. SEC champions from a couple weeks ago, ranked 3rd in the country according to Golf Stat. They have won 5 times this season, including 5 of their last 6, so they're getting hot at the right time. We could call it Stillwater East. The last time Oklahoma State played a regional there in Columbus, 2018, they went on to win the national title. Overall, the Cowboys have won 3 national titles and 2 regionals on the Scarlet course. Obviously, the players are different, but if there's horses for courses, OSU and Columbus, that certainly works out well. Runner-up at the Big 12, 2nd in the country, 3 wins led by Eugenio Shikara. So the Cowboys going to Columbus, Ohio. The teams that will be joining them, Georgia Tech, Arkansas, Clemson, East Tennessee State, rounding out the top 5. Focus in on number 6 there, the host seed Buckeyes. Maybe a little fly in the ointment of those trying to get out. Northwestern, they were waiting, they were wondering. Let's head out west to the Stockton, California regional. Last time it was held there was back in 2018, where the individual champ 4 years ago was Norman Zhang, on his way to winning the Haskins Award presented by Stiefel. That was his 6th win that season. We'll see if some magic comes out of it 4 years later in 2022. We know the top seed headed to Stockton. The Sun Devils from Arizona State, ranked 4th in the country. A couple of victories during the course of the season. Preston Summerhays just named the Pac-12 Newcomer of the Year. They want to get to Greyhawk. They are hosting for the 2nd consecutive year. Big things expected for head coach Matt Thurman and the Sun Devils. The teams also joining ASU out in California. Washington, Stanford, LSU, and Oregon, they round out the top 5. Nevada and Liberty, 6 and 7. How about Abilene Christian there, a 13 seed? Let's make our way to the Nutmeg State. Connecticut, New Haven Regional, Yale Golf Club playing host, a program with a lot of tradition, a lot of history, a golf course that has seemingly stood the test of time, grabbing a regional every 3 to 4 to 5 years. And the number 1 seed up in Connecticut, the Tar Heels from North Carolina, 5th in the country. They won 3 of 4 times in the fall, trying to trend in the right direction with just a couple of events remaining in this season. We'll see if the Tar Heels can get the job done. They've made it to match play a year ago. They're looking to go deeper. Joining North Carolina in Connecticut, Texas Tech, Wake Forest, Illinois, NC State. They round out the top 5. Charlotte, North Florida, Georgia Southern, Mississippi State, and Virginia. And you see UCF there. You can do the math. One of those final couple of at-large bids. One more regional site to announce. Let's zoom on in to Bryan, Texas. We already told you, Pepperdine, the top seed there. And those sitting on the edge of their seat wondering if they're in, if they're out. Are they going to get a spot in Texas? Well, you're going to find out now because the final 13 teams revealed the Waves' number 1 seed there. Texas A&M at home at 2 seed, then Georgia, Tennessee, Kansas, Arizona, Michigan State rounding out the top 7. SMU, a very intriguing 8 seed that we will talk about in just a little bit. But let's take a look at the Pepperdine Waves, defending national champs, number 1 seed down there at the Bryan Regional. Just won the West Coast Conference Championship, their 3rd win of the year. And they're trying to go back-to-back. I know they have a lot of unfinished business with regards to maybe a bullseye on their back for the last 12 months. 81 teams made it. A lot of teams unable to get to regionals. But the great part about it, individuals qualify as well. We're going to take you through the names moving on to represent their schools. We take a look at the 10 players heading to Norman, Oklahoma. I say it each and every year, and I always reiterate it. Just because your teams aren't there, it's a wonderful chance to play for your school and maybe have that final walk with your college coach along the way. Palm Beach Garden, they've got 5 individuals headed down there. See if they can deal with some temps likely to be in the mid-90s a couple weeks from now in South Florida. How about the individuals headed to Bryan, Texas? Like a couple of Alabama Crimson Tide players, Cannon Claycomb, Thomas Ponder. They were one of those teams inside the number but under the 500 rule, so the squad couldn't make it. They were unable to host a regional. That moved to Norman, but a chance for Claycomb and Ponder to play for head coach Jay Sewell there just outside of Texas A&M. UNLV Southern Cal, they're headed to the Stockton site. Couple of perennial powers. Normally you would see the Rebels and Trojans there in the mix as a squad, not to be. So Roney and Rivera a chance to play well for those 2 schools. Columbus, Ohio, you've got 10 players making the trip individually. No surprises. See some Big Ten flavor. A couple of Wisconsin Badgers. A couple of Nittany Lions from Penn State. Hunter Eichhorn, one of the better players in the country. You may not be familiar with. Keep an eye on him from Marquette. And those Indies headed to New Haven. Eddie Lai from UCLA, the swan song for head coach Derek Freeman, who's stepping down after nearly 2 decades leading the Bruins